Welcome back to How to Connect with Humans. This is Series 2, Episode 2, and we can't believe it every time we're here. Today we have somebody that is so dear to our heart, and he's gonna talk about what he's been doing for a long time, which is awaken people to their mental health and well-being. So he's a psychiatrist who basically decided not to work with mental illness, but with mental health. And so Bill Pettit, Dr. Bill Pettit, who is here with us today. Thank you for being here, Wayne. I love you. Is somebody who I saw on a video when I just started my journey around the principles about 8 years ago. And in this video, I saw this psychiatrist talking about so many people that had awakened to their mental health. And what I heard at that time very clear was, you are sitting on mental health. You've never been mentally ill. You're not broken. You never will. And that we are all in that state of mind constantly. And that woke me up completely. And this is one of the reasons why we're doing this, because we know the power of having a Zoom call where you can actually talk to somebody like Bill, but also that can be then reproduced later and help other people. So today, Bill is going to talk to us about A.L.E.R.T mind, and it's A.L.E.R.T stands for to learn to awaken to, listen to, experience, recognize, and trust. So without further ado, welcome here.
Welcome.
Bill,
you.
how are you?
Oh, you know, I'm really well. I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed. You know, people look at us on the weather thing. We did hit 47 degrees here 2 days ago, and in centigrade, and it's the sixth highest ever recorded here, I think. But I know there's places in the Middle East that gets near 50, so. It's probably they would consider 47 cooler. We're fine. I'm really fine. My wife and Linda are in a kind of a social bubble with her daughter and her family and 2 little grandchildren. So we feel very blessed, very blessed. So make sure that I understand. We do have 90 minutes today, and is that my understanding is, and then maybe I would talk for 35 to 40 minutes, and then we would open it up to discussion.
Yes, and if you want to have a conversation with us, that's fine. And if you want to use more time or less time, it's up to you.
Well, yeah, and if you want to stop at any time and direct me, I have no problem with that. I'm here in service. So
thank you.
There was a song years ago, you can use me anyway. If this is using me, you can use me till I'm all used up. So here to be in service. Recently I had a talk, and some of you may know that there's a series called My Guide Inside, and in the UK there's A.L.E.R.T and there's the Spark Inside, and in the United States, and they're all efforts to bring this understanding to children when they're young, because that's where the hope is. I don't know what happens when I even think of that. I get choked up, because that's what's going to change the world, is when children are hearing this every day in school, or in their local church or wherever, from their parents. And And I have dedicated myself to become knowledgeable of the other two programs also, and to give them a chance to a call that we invited 150 people and we had 25 online. But the one I'm most familiar with, I'm just going to touch base because it's related to what I'm going to talk about. And it's called My Guide Inside. And you can go to My Guide Inside and you see Peep, and I forget the other names of the two owls, two little baby owls, right? And it's called the My Guide Inside. And I just, to me, as a mentor, I don't consider myself a coach. I'm a retired psychiatrist, but I'm a mentor. But I'm a mentor to which is a nice name for a guide. And I'm a guide to let people know that they have a guide inside. I mean, it's not complicated. I'm just a guide that points to where the guide is. That's all I do. And people say, "Oh, God, wonderful things happen." I say, "Yeah, I just pointed people where the guide was." It's really not hard. It's not, it doesn't take a real high IQ. If you see something and other people don't see it and you point to it, and then they see it, they're really grateful, but all you did was point to what you were fortunate enough to see. And Mr. Sidney Banks was fortunate enough to have a peek to me into what I'll call the mind of God, and one of the bigger peaks that ever occurred. He was a very humble man. He was my teacher for 26 years. But he told me, he said, "Bill," he said, when the children hear this, it'll change the world, because they'll grow up and they'll interact with each other differently. And the other day when I was talking about the guidance side, they have the My Guidance Side people have a teacher's manual and a student manual for first and second, third grade, and then fourth through seventh or eighth grade, and then eighth grade through high school. And I looked at the very first book and I said, if the adults in the world would take the first grade book lesson and listen to it, it would change the world. And here's the first four lessons, and I'm just going to read them to you. The first lesson is My Guide Inside. You have a guide inside. It is wisdom and common sense. Everyone has this guide inside. What? Are you kidding me? Just look for the feeling. Just look for the feeling. You can trust your guide. It points you in the right way. Now, that's more, in those few words, that's more than I learned about mental health in 800 lectures of a psychiatry residency. I don't know about you, that's amazing. Chapter 2, my thoughts, my feelings come from thought. Learn something new. Chapter 1, you discovered your guide inside. In Chapter 2, get ready to learn your feelings are created by your thoughts. What? I thought it was that person that sent me a nasty text or an Instagram or an obscene gesture or didn't appreciate all that I did for them. What? Let's learn something new. My thought creates my feeling. All my feelings come from thought. What? I can buy some, but you're saying, yeah, all my feelings come from thought. I can let unwanted thoughts pass by, and well-being is present. Wow. I wish they would have taught this in medical school to me. Taught me a lot of good things, but It would have been that much better if they would have taught me that, let alone in psychiatry residency. I'm just going to do the first 4 chapters in this first grade book. In chapter 2, you learned your feelings created your thoughts. In chapter 3, be ready to discover happiness is inside of you. Wait a minute. Inside of me? I thought it was getting a high score on a medical test, or having a pretty girl agree to go out on a date with me. I thought it was, or people saying, "Oh, you're really a wonderful psychiatrist." You're saying it's inside. Yeah, it's saying, let's learn something new. I listen to my guide inside. Helpful thoughts pop up, and my good feeling is present again. Happiness is inside of me. Wow. Wow. Here's one I'm still learning, folks. I'm still learning. I was learning it this morning, but I did get quiet enough to spend the last 12 minutes just getting quiet to be here with you. Now, I got 12 or 13 things done, or 11 things done before, but then I at least had enough sense. And it's called Fast and Furious or Calm and Curious. Like I said, this is still a lesson I'm working on, the 4th lesson in the first grade manual. Learn something new. In chapter 3, you learned happiness was inside of you. In chapter 4, you can learn to choose to be fast and furious or to be calm and curious. Let's learn something new. I can see I am thinking fast and furious. I can choose to let it go. I can be calm and curious. The other 4 lessons you're going to have to learn on your own. Maybe I've made you curious what they are. I think most of us were taught that fast and furious is good. Get a lot accomplished, people tell you. I remember a few months, it's interesting, and I'm just kind of listen inside as I talk. People have asked me for my transcript of my talk one time, and I gave a talk for 400 people in Orlando, and a reporter from the Orlando Sentinel came up and asked for my transcript of my talk. I said, well, I don't have any transcript. He said, well, let me see your notes. I said, well, I have a 3x5 card. You can have that. But I try to listen even as we're talking. And when we talked about, when I went to Fast and Furious or Calm and Curious, I thought of a few months after I had been exposed, well, no, about a year and a half after I'd been exposed to the principles, and some of you may have heard me tell this story. I came up to a stop sign in Tampa. I was in Bradenton, but I had to go to Tampa for something, Bradenton, Florida, which is on the west coast, what we call the Gulf Coast, Gulf of Mexico. And I was pulling up to a stoplight, and it turned red for me to stop. And a whole bunch of people started crossing. And the thought came into my head that I could press on the accelerator really fast, and I might be able to kill at least 20 people. Double points for older people like me now, right? I wasn't one of them then. Now, there was a time in my life that I would have been terrified that I had that thought. You see, no one thought ends up anybody in the hospital or in the mental health unit. So many people have one thought, and then they have 60,000 thoughts about that thought. And if I would have been frightened by that thought, and suddenly started doing battle with it in my head. They may well have found me pulled over by the side of the road, curled up in a fetal position, mumbling incoherently, "I'm not a killer. I'm not a murderer. I'm not a killer. I'm not a murderer," as they carried me off to the emergency room in the psychiatric hospital. But because of what I had learned, or seen, not learned, because you don't put things in, you let things out. You let the wisdom that's already inside of us, that's true education. Because of the insights that I'd had, I was puzzled by that thought, but I wasn't frightened by it. And I went to a place of quiet. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't pull over. I thought that's really interesting. And I just got quiet. And the next thought that came to me was, "Bill, you're exhausted. You're exhausted. You've been trying to do too much. You haven't been taking care of yourself. You haven't been getting enough rest. You haven't been exercising. But mainly, you haven't been getting enough rest. People need sleep. You're trying to do too much." And I went, "Oh, okay. Thank you." See, do you see that difference between the quality of my thinking? People say, I don't listen to my thoughts anymore. I listen to the feeling. And that's true. That's what I do primarily. But that thought, when there's kind of a bizarre thought that's totally illegal or totally beyond my moral code or even dangerous to myself or others, it's usually the time for me to just get present. And I usually find out that I've been going fast and furious instead of calm and curious. And at that moment, I don't have to look for anything. I don't have to engage my intellect. In fact, if I do, I'll probably just get more lost. But if I'm willing just to be in my life, exhausted, even exhausted, if I'm just being willing to just get present in my life and not berate myself for, "Gosh, I should know better by now," or no, just be grateful that I just woke up again. Sid says, if you seek perfection, you're going to fail miserably. But if you're willing to just keep doing the next right thing that you see to do as best you can, you'll be fine. You'll help many more people than you hurt. You want that ratio to be as big as possible. But it doesn't come from effort. It ironically comes from taking care of yourself. That's a paradox. Sid used to always say that when we would meet in groups. He'd say, as I talk I'm sure many of you have listened to his videos, of the Long Beach videos and the Hawaii videos and Washington lectures. He said, as you listen over the next 3 days, many of you are teachers, you're therapists, you're this, you're that. You're going to say, "Oh gosh, this would sure help my husband or my wife. Boy, I wish they were, or my brother, or my sister, or my mother, or my father, or my children, or my students, or my patients." He said, let those thoughts go. Because the most loving and selfless thing that you can do the next 3 days is to be totally selfish about finding peace of mind. I didn't know that for years, folks. I didn't know how I didn't know the guide was inside of me. I didn't know the thoughts created my feelings. I didn't know that happiness was inside of me. I didn't know that calm and curious was much more creative, productive, and everything else than fast and furious. And so I often was trying, but my heart was good. I think my heart's always been good. So I tried to give from an empty basket. And it's real hard to do. But if you really learn that happiness is inside of you and that you're guided every moment of your life, you don't have to figure it out. God does that, save a lot of energy and time and angst. You live in a state of fullness most of the time. And from a place of fullness, you always have plenty to give because you're not needing a lot yourself. I used to metaphorically wake up every morning starving psychologically. And I had to get filled up by my day. I had to get filled up by things that made me happy, things that gave me pleasure, things that relieved my dis-ease to even a little bit that I was creating with my thinking. So I woke up starving. So I watched a thing on Nature the other day of wolves in the Arctic. Amazing how they survive. But every day is kind of an effort to get enough to survive. And when I started to wake up that happiness was inside of me, I woke up every day full. And then I tell the metaphor that comes to me, because I like to eat. That's why I'm still 25 pounds more than I probably should be at 78 years old. I've learned some things better than others. And that's okay. Didn't used to be okay with me. But now metaphorically, I started to wake up with a huge, big chocolate cupcake every day. Now, I don't know about you. I like frosting. Some people don't. I love frosting. So then if people were nice to me during that day, I got frosting. If people acknowledged me as a decent human being, I got frosting. If the things I tried worked out more than they didn't work out, I got frosting. I love frosting. But you know what? There were some days that I didn't seem to get very little or any frosting. But you know what? A big chocolate cupcake, even without frosting, ain't bad. It's not bad. I wasn't starving anymore. I was grateful when I got even a little frosting. Instead of having a quota, if I didn't have so much frosting, how was I supposed to be happy? And keeping score every day what the frosting level was. I've never really talked about it this way before. I don't know whether this is insider craziness, but you'll be the judge. But I didn't have to do that anymore. All I had to do was to live in the present moment. And if I fell asleep, as Sid says, we're going to fall asleep and wake up. Fall asleep and wake up. I got much more sensitive and caught myself being asleep sooner than I used to. And what do I mean by being asleep? By getting caught up in upsetting thinking. Things are not the way that I want them to be. For many years, I thought the purpose of the world was to make Bill Pettit happy. So I was constantly disappointed in the world and whoever was in charge, because it didn't seem to be working out that way a lot of time. And part of it was the standards that I had to, in order to be happy. I didn't know it was already given to me. I will go to A.L.E.R.T. Carolina actually did it fine, so I'll just be repeating. She did with a little stuff, but there's a beautiful song by Leonard Cohen. It's called The Anthem, and it's the one that I like on YouTube. It's about 9 minutes, and if you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to watch it. And it's the one live in London, actually, 2008. And I got drafted and was with a squadron of naval pilots, and so I really have they gave me flight training and they offered me to solo, but at the final test, the solo, they really were going to send me out in a T-28, a 1,400 horsepower plane with a 1,400 fully acrobatic plane, and they were literally going to send me out to solo. And I figured I had maybe about a 80% chance of coming back alive. And I just didn't like those odds because I'd rolled dice before, and even 1 out of 6 is, and it happened pretty quickly. So I said, well, I really appreciate your confidence in me, but I don't think so. But I still love flying. And in the anthem, there's some beautiful pictures of what I call squadrons of geese flying in formation. And I just get in awe when I sit in the backyard and I see these birds flying in V's and taking turns to go to the front. And maybe they're not perfect V's. Maybe there's 9 on one side and 7 on the other side. But, they listened to Banks and they said perfection. And, it's not about perfection. It's about having fun flying. But as I listened to that, and Leonard Cohen he's passed, and he's like Bob Dylan. If you try to figure out what the hell he's saying with some of the symbols, you'll drive yourself. You'll be mumbling by the side of the road somewhere. But on the other hand, if you just listen and have your heart open, you know that he's pointing to something. And one of the recurring things that you could understand in this anthem is and I'm going to just give my take on this, but he has this line, everything has a crack in it. That's how the light gets in. Well, those of you that have read the Relationship Handbook by Dr. George Pransky, a good friend of mine, it's one of the and the new one, of course, Secret to Love by Christine Heath. Those 2 relationship handbooks, I think, should be part of the 9th grade education curriculum, along with, of course, if they've had these other ones earlier on. But in every chapter, after the first chapter, there's a myth, and then there's a grain of truth. And as I heard that saying, everything has a crack inside, that's how the light gets in. My truth meter kind of moved, but it didn't just fully resonate. So I knew there was a grain of truth there. I didn't know what it was, so I've got enough sense not to go to my intellect. If I don't think of it after 2 or 3 tries, it's probably not going to be any better 30 years later. So I went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and it was given to me. And it said, everything has a crack in it. That's how the light gets out. That's how the light gets out. Because the light's inside. And all we have to do is to see enough that we pay a little bit less attention to our personal thought system when we're experiencing discomfort or dis-ease, or we haven't even had a hearty laugh and it's noon already. And even that little bit of not paying attention to our intellect will create a crack, and the light gets out. And somebody tried to tell me, well, it's bi-directional. The light gets in too. And I said, maybe. I think the light goes out and it appreciates and experiences and is aware of the light that's already around. I think the light goes out. Like Sid says in one of the chapters, just because the blind man can't see the sunset or the sunrise and the deaf man cannot hear the sound of the crashing ocean waves, doesn't mean that they don't exist. But for a good part of my life, I was so busy in my head that I could have been right in the middle of both of them and not experienced them. So A.L.E.R.T came to me, as I'm preparing a kind of a personal 7-month program to mentor people to the guidance side, pointing people to the guidance side. That now I won't. If we had those little things where you could push a button, yes or no, have you been to those talks where you can push something and they immediately get feedback from 800 people in the house or whatever. So I know we've only just got 17 or 18 here, but I want to know. Let's see. Well, you can show me a raise. There's only about there's only 7 or 8 people in it. You don't have to do this, but if you want to, how many people know that mentor was a person? One person. So very quickly, mentor was a person. When Ulysses left to fight the Trojan War, and he was gone for 10 years of the war, and then 10 years coming back, he was gone for 20 years. His son was an infant, Telemachus. I know my kids used to say when I'd start off on something, they'd say, Dad, we don't care. Do you understand? We don't care. I said, that's okay. I'm your dad. You got to listen for 2 more minutes. So Telemachus was an infant, so Ulysses left direction that when he reached a certain age, and I forget, I think it was like 15 or 16, he was to be taken to Macedonia, I believe, which is above Greece, and he was to be taken to mentor, to be guided, to be taught, to be pointed to how to go through life with more wisdom. So now every mentor is mentor. Yeah, I can see some of you are kind of excited that you got that new fact, but that's okay. I'll take if one of you does. So it came to me, I woke up and I thought, so I'm going to have this program to awaken, to help people realize they have the guidance side, which here they're doing it for first graders, first chapter. You've got a guide inside. I'm making it complicated already, right? I have to have an acronym. Just tell people and let them realize they've got a guide inside. And I thought, well, that's okay. So A is to awaken to the realization that we do have a guide inside. I didn't know that. It would have saved me and a lot of other people a lot of anguish if I would have known before to listen to that I had a guide inside. I didn't know that. So A is to awaken awareness that I had a guide inside. L is to learn to listen. Now that I know it exists, then I'm more sensitive to listening to it, to listening for it. In the United States here, we used to, before the pandemic, we used to have these big marching bands at football stadiums. And I say, you can, if the guide it whispers to us with clarity and profundity and certainty, but it whispers, it doesn't scream, it whispers. And it's like a flute or a harp or some other quiet instrument. And that's how wisdom comes through to us. But it's hard to hear a harp or a flute playing if you've got the Michigan marching band playing in your head. Real hard. Real hard. Fast and Furious, Calm and Curious. So L is to learn to listen to it. E is to learn to experience it, actually experience. Wow, how did I know to do that? And it doesn't have to be big life. You start to realize that literally, folks, this is not something you have to pray for, and every once in a while, some stingy person in charge gives you a little bit of. It's being given 24/7. And all you have to do is to be willing to be aware that it's there, listen for it, and start to experience it. And then you start to recognize the feeling that comes with it, the feeling of certainty, the feeling of clarity, the feeling of it's profound. But it's not. It's clarity. It's you. I tell people in the last 25 years, I've made very few decisions in my life because most of the time I don't have to make any decision. I just get quiet and I listen, and I get a metaphorical 3x5 card that has the answer on it. And I go, oh, thank you. And I go do that. It's not complicated. I used to have to weigh and, pluses and minuses and advantages and disadvantages, and it drive me crazy. I know none of you have ever done that, but I'm just confessing that I did. And the last one is T, as Carolina said. You start to trust it because it's foolproof. You start to trust it. Now, I've seen some people say, "Oh, my wisdom guided me to do X, Y, and Z," and it hurt a lot of people, and it was, and I go, it doesn't pass the wisdom test for me. Because to me, my experience in 78 years of living is that when that guide inside comes through, it doesn't hurt anybody, and it's clear, and it's profound, and yet it's not a roar. It's the bleat of a lamb, but it's with clarity, profundity, and wisdom. And with that, I see that it's 42 after, and I'm going to do better than I usually do at stopping talking. And I will listen. It's not that funny, Carolina. I don't know why you thought that was funny. Yeah. Anyway, let me listen. Carolina, she was hoping that I'd stop at least by 50 after the hour, right? So to me, she just got she realized she got an 8-minute bonus. So yeah. Go ahead.
We'll talk for another 6 hours and we'll just sit here and just.
Absolutely.
And I love that you came with the metaphors of cake and frosting, and it's really, really kind of our thing, isn't it? Like one of the things when this pandemic started and we quarantined, well, I thought, well, we got so quiet and so we had a great time, we without disregarding, obviously what's been happening, and right. But for us, we got so quiet, and we just have nowhere to rush and go, and the garden started growing like crazy because we just thought, well, what's the point? We just let it grow, and the cat's been jumping around in this jungle, and so suddenly more and more all the little things, very simple things, it was and I'm very curious about that book you have there, but starting sparkling, like the best cup of tea that you ever had, and that started happening, and I thought I really like baking and I really like chocolate cake. And I started baking and baking. I thought, oh, well, if say it's the end of the world, we don't know. So I might as well now bake and we can eat and see what happens. Because I had made up this idea that if I had too much cake around, I will never stop eating cake. You see, I will explode. And but I never tried that theory. So so what happened was that we had lots of cake with lots of frosting, Bill. So next time, just bring Linda and the kids, and we can bubble all together. And but there was too much cake, and one of those cracks of lights was that we started having the opportunity to talk to the neighbors, by neighbors that were on their own and alone, and it gave us this opportunity to say hi and just put a little Tupperware with a piece of chocolate cake next to the door, so they will have something, and that started a lot of conversations. And so there you go, the power of frosting and chocolate cake. So should we have Ivan here with his hand up, so I guess it's a great time to let people unmute how Wayne is going to do his magic, so people can unmute themselves.
Hello.
Oh,
hello.
You are. Hello.
Hi, Ewan.
Hello, Dr. Bill. Hello,
Hi.
Dr. Bill. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
First, I want to thank you for doing this. It's just lovely, lovely, lovely. And when you talked about that crack, it's always a crack. It hit me. I'm volunteering on a suicide line here in Sweden, doing night shifts from midnight to 06, taking telephone calls. And those who's calling is in deep shit, so to speak. Crying, don't wanting to be here anymore. And I found that the best thing I can do at the beginning is to listen to them, just listen.
Absolutely.
And in doing so, I've been seeing their wisdom coming through. A word here, a word there, that they are okay, nothing broken. And when you said that about there's a crack and the light is coming out, oh, that is so true. I'm seeing that light in that person, or hearing, because it's on the phone.
Right.
So yeah, thank you for that metaphor.
I'm just passing it on. Just to be, we can only. There's a wonderful. Do you know the name Ewan Doug Hammarskjöld?
Yes.
You know Doug.
He's born not so far from where I'm living.
Wow. See, isn't that interesting that came to me, that his name, a lot of the young people might not know Dag Hammarskjöld. He was from, was he from Switzerland? Sweden?
No, Sweden.
He was from Sweden. And he was the what do they call the person of the United Nations?
Chairman?
Anyway, he was the head of the United Nations, and he died in a plane crash when I was young. But he has a beautiful quote, and I have it somewhere, but I'm not going to go find it. I should have it to where available. And it's you are just the lens that the light comes through. And if you have your lens as clear as possible, you can be a clear flashpoint for the light, and you can give it and then pass it on. And that's that's what we're all trying to do is just be a clearer lens, so that the light can come through us and be shared with others. Yeah. No, thank you, Human. Thank you. That's interesting. That only how far away from you?
Well, about 80 kilometers.
Oh my gosh! And of course, I was scheduled to be there at Stockholm in May, and I'm hoping that, because I have relatives, I've gotten a lot of information. I've got a whole book here of my ancestry, from Sweden.
Okay.
Whole book.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm anxious. I look forward, if God willing, the creek don't rise and the pandemic.
Well, I'm living in the south of Sweden, so I'm closer to Copenhagen than Stockholm.
Well, South Sweden was where my relatives were from.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Anyway, won't take any more time, but I look forward to it. Yeah.
Yes, you're so welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Brilliant. So we have Jean Monteiro. So you can unmute yourself, or we can unmute you. There we go. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just outside here. Hi, Bill. I don't know if you remember me. You worked with my daughter Olivia and I for a little while.
Yes.
Yes. So, Bill, my question is, I've been learning about the 3 principles for the past couple of years, and when I'm reading about it and listening to people like you, being in your presence, it really seems to seep through. And then what I find is when regular life comes in, and when I'm faced with the challenges, as you know, of my daughter's illness, I seem to forget it, and I go into a depression again. And my question is, it feels to me like everyone seems to get it. There's all these stories of people realizing their own innate well-being and all the well-being of those people around them. And why is it that I'm stuck and I don't seem to be able to live it? I seem to have an intellectual understanding of it, but not like, I still go back into that default mode of worrying and feeling sick about it.
Well, I'm here on page 7 of the missing link, where Sid says, all human psyches, there's that big word all, right? All human psyches are rooted in universal truth, and no person's psyche is better than any other's. Only to the degree of the individual's psychological and spiritual understanding does it appear to vary. And above that, it says, wisdom lies within the consciousness of all human beings. Oh, wait, Jean, I've never seen this asterisk before. It says all human beings. The spiritual wisdom lies within the wisdom of all human beings except Jean. Oh my gosh, I didn't. You understand why I got spanked, Jean, as a child. I earned every one of them. Here's the deal. I bet you're not the only person that comes up against things in life that it seems like it's not inside out. Now, when most of us hear the principles, there's something that resonates, that place of truth. We know damn well that it's true, that it is inside out. It's not being created by our life, our circumstances, and we get a glimpse of that truth. It's just damn true. But we have a pile here over here to the right, we have this pile of exceptions. Except if this happens to one of my children, except if this happens to me economically, except. If we don't know, like Sid says in Second Chance, the problem is you think the only reality there is this reality, this illusion. If you don't see in the oneness, then you live in a cosmic lie. So here's my simple answer to you, Jean, is the same for you, for me, for everybody that's on this call and is not on this call. This is what's true for me. If I come up against emotional pain, I either know that I'm being given an opportunity to see something that I haven't seen yet, to go through. Mr. Banks said there's an infinite number of doors of understanding these principles. So when people say, oh, I thought I knew these principles, but now I see I don't, because every time I come up against something, I get depressed, anxious, obsessive, whatever. It's not that you don't know anything about the principles. You've had insights. But if I really know that the only person that can cause me emotional pain, the only person, thing, or whatever that can cause me emotional pain is in the same underpants I'm in, then I don't go looking somewhere else for the culprit. I just look and see who's in my underpants. And every time I've looked, it's me. And if I really know that, not just believe it, if I know it, then I know that looking out there is not going to find the answer. But I know that there is an answer, a deeper understanding of the oneness of my connection to the divine. And whatever, if people are offended by divine, then using universal, the universal energy of life. I was reading about the string theory this morning in my book of everything, which is fascinating. I don't know I've really ever taken the time to really try to understand what they're talking about. But then the next question is, now we went from quarks, and we went from the atom and to quarks, and now to string theory, and nobody's asking, where does that come from? Where does the energy of the string theory come from? We are that energy. We're not separate. There is no separate from the whole. Now, that's not dogma. You don't have to believe that. But I'm telling you, if you start to have insights that point in that direction, you lose fear of life. You lose fear of death. I have a good friend in South Africa who tells his story. I could, send links, but he reminds me of James Earl Jones. He's a powerful big man. He's a physician trained in Oxford in England, but he's in South. He's a professor, speaks at the medical school and the business school at the University of Cape Town in South Africa. And when he was working as a family physician, one day he was sitting with a young woman, and a man came. They came in to rob his. He didn't know what was going on. They made his associate say, his assistant out front say, would you like some coffee, doctor? He said, sure. And here they walk in with guns, and the next thing he knows, this man has a gun right against his temple. And he says, I'm going to kill you. And Chadwick said, I guess this was a test, but I was amazed, because what came to me was, and I said to him, you can't kill me. I'm not this body. He said, you can kill my body if you want to, but you can't kill me. He said, you're not scared. He said, no, I'm not. You can, if you blow my brain, that's okay. If you have to do that, if you feel, but you can't kill me. I'll be fine. Because this is not who I am. I'm just riding around in this thing right now. Well, the man was so disarmed by that. Of course, they ended up. He told him where the money was, and he said then they started telling him, we've got a friend who's in prison, and we're just doing this to try to get him out of prison. And Chadwick made a joke. He said, seems to be like you're going to end up in prison with your buddy if you're doing stuff like this. And he said, here, I was going to blow your brains out, and you're cracking jokes, doctor, And they left. And then he called the next patient in, and this woman said, after what happened, you're going to care for my little girl? He said, well, that was over. That's over now. We're in this now. We're in this now. If we start to see that eternity is nothing but an endless set of nows, that's all it is. So why would we be any place else than where only thing that exists? And we're either in one of two places. We're either in our life or we're in our thoughts. We're either in the now or we're in our thoughts about the now. And one is glorious. Even during difficult times, there's something glorious about it. Because we're connected to spirit. We're connected to our source. We're connected to our essence. I don't know if that helps, Jean. It's just, and
It's helpful.
The key is to know that I'm sorry, you don't get to be the exception. You're like the rest of us. You're learning incrementally. I tell people, listen, Jean, I tell people I learn really slowly and I forget quickly. It's the story of my life. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful to and it is about gratitude. It's about just being gratitude for every little bit that we see, and that gratitude will always carry us forward effortlessly. But if we try
Sorry.
No.
Sorry. Go ahead, Bill. Finish.
Intellect. If we try to see more with our intellect, all we'll do is drive ourselves batshit.
Yeah.
That's a scientific term, batshit.
One that I understand.
Yeah,
okay.
The Catholic nun that was having panic attacks. Did you just say batshit? I said, yes, sister, I did. She said, that's what I've been doing. I've been driving myself batshit.
Thank you.
It was helpful? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Love you.
Yeah, the guide is there. And the guide is there for your daughter, too. Never went away.
It is.
Never went away.
Even though it's hard to see, but it's there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can shroud it over. Huh? What does he say?
Yeah.
Wisdom is inside of a spiritual way, but it's shrouded over by our own erroneous thoughts. But it's whole. It's never broken. It can't even be scratched. Can't even be scratched. I'm going to be working the rest of this week to get my course up. That's going to start the Thursday after Labor Day here in the United States. The first Thursday, Thursday in second Thursday in September, and it's going to be a 12-week course on seeing that these psychiatric symptoms, signs, syndromes, and labels, they're just love letters. They're love letters trying to wake us up. And so a fresh look at ICD-11 and DSM-5 through eyes of the three principles. So we're never broken, nothing lacking. Ain't happening.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Oh.
Can I ask a question? My name is Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle, go.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for such a fantastic talk. I really, really enjoyed it. I just wanted to ask, I was a psychotherapist for about 10 years, and I came across the three principles probably about 8 years ago. And I did the course, on three principles.
I got to ask Dr. Bill Pettit.
Hello.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I did the course on three principles. I became a three principles practitioner, and yes, it was life transforming, and I just completely closed down my psychotherapy practice. I never went back in there again. But over time, I started to look at goal setting, and I started rushing around again. And I built up a coaching practice, and I saw myself as successful. And I was on TV, radio, fantastic. And then, like when COVID hit, about March time, people were saying to me, you can put videos out, you can do so much because, you've got the knowledge. I suddenly just didn't feel like doing anything. I literally felt like doing nothing. I have had no motivation since it all started, and I'm not depressed. I'm not sad. I've never been happier. Actually, I've never been more fulfilled. I've never had more contentment, but I feel baffled.
Michelle, what is your question? I'm going to ask.
My question is that I'm not comfortable with how I'm feeling. It's like I need to have another goal. I need to know what's next. And right now, because there's nothing, there's an incredible discomfort about that. And I guess my question is, how do I surrender more to that, to the fact that I feel like doing nothing and being okay with that?
But you just said you have an incredible discomfort about it.
Yeah, I do. I don't
Yes.
feel comfortable with the fact that I've got nothing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Tell me what 3 Principles course you had.
Jamie Smart.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I did it years ago.
Okay, and you've read all of Mr. Banks's books?
Yeah, read the books, did the videos, did the whole thing. Okay. And I think, to be honest, when I think about it, I've dropped almost to another level of slowing down that I didn't think I was capable of. And it feels to me like maybe I allowed myself to slow down until a certain point, but was uncomfortable with going any further. And now it's just dropped to another level, and I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable with not being my average self.
Yeah. I will say this. I hope that you can hear it in where it's coming from.
Yes.
The answer is to listen to your own guide inside. It's not from me. It's going to come from you. Any time you're feeling incredible discomfort, you've innocently separated yourself from your spirit.
Yeah.
And that's a time to listen. And you've got a chance to go through a few more of those infinite number of doors, Michelle, and be grateful for all that you've seen, but know that it's endless what we get to see. And you've been faced by a life challenge that has put your level of understanding to the test.
Yes.
And if we innocently create discomfort, if I really know the only person that can create incredible discomfort again is in my underbritches, then I know that the get as quiet as possible and to listen, to be in my life and to listen to the guide inside. And you will wake up some morning laughing.
Yeah.
But it may be that you won't have to have any goal except happiness and contentment.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely. Yeah.
From Second Chance, and it was the 4th time that I read that book, and that I actually heard that I was ready to hear that what is the definition of success? Richard says to Jonathan. And what does he say? What does he say, Michelle?
Do you know what? I'm reading it for a second. I think it's for the 2nd or 3rd time, and it's happiness and contentment. And I think I've lost that over the years. I think I read that, then I lost it, and then I'm now rereading it all and almost seeing new things in the book.
Absolutely, because at some degree you've attached the happiness to things outside of you, those goals,
yes.
that you, etc. And you're having a new chance. And see, happiness and contentment has not had a very good marketing.
Absolutely.
Haven't,
You're
because
right.
Think of happiness and contentment, they think that people are going to sit around looking at their navel. And that's far from true. When people are happy and contented, they have all the gifts that they've been given available to them. And they're guided clearly by wisdom, the vast majority. Not by need, not by ego, not by investment or fear. Only the 2 things that take people away from love and understanding are investment and fear.
Yeah.
Have a great day, and thank you
so much.
Thank you for asking. Yeah.
Thank you. So if anybody else wants to unmute yourself or put the hand up, the little hand that you have at the bottom. Michelle, unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm fine. I've been watching you. You've been listening.
So I literally cried and laughed my head off.
That's good.
It's absolutely brilliant. I don't know that I've gone through so many, like, I don't know, emotions all in one little period of time. Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you. And like, I'm going to give you some frosting now. I'm going to give you a heap of frosting.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, I hope you got your cupcake ready. I just think that you're just amazing, and you're so. Do you know, honestly, it's beyond description. It really is beyond description. I've been watching some of your webinars on the 3P GC the last couple of weeks, and I saw one. It was yesterday, actually. You're my person of choice now. I saw one yesterday, and I absolutely fell in love with it's a love letter from, like, you were talking about health, like physical health, and you were saying that, you know, when you get some discomfort, or if you put your back out, or God, you've passed some kidney stones as well. Wow. You were saying that that's like a love letter from, you know, from your body, sort of saying, slow down, don't do this, that, or whatever. Would you also say when you get feelings of discomfort, that's like a love letter that's a love letter telling you, like, it's informing you of something, or, you know, it's a love letter to just say, get back in the present?
Yeah. What do you mean by when you say discomfort, Michelle?
Well, I guess
physical discomfort, or?
Well, I mean like mental discomfort.
Yeah.
I've had a bit of a weird week. It's been like almost, it's been a little bit like a roller coaster, actually. I've gone from incredibly feeling absolutely so blissful, and then, you know, yesterday it happened, actually. Had this real feeling of unease. But I realized, listening to you now, that I got back into my fast and furious mode, and that's kind of what did it. So, you know, please take the frosting with lots and lots of love, and I hope you enjoy it. And
but what you're saying is that you kind of see for yourself that it's information.
Yeah,
it's information. Our feeling level is, you know, like it says, it's our thoughts create our feelings. It's a barometer of our thinking, and so it's just giving us feedback. And it's not about beating ourselves up or judging ourselves. You know, it's just about the quieter we are, the more we can listen. You know, I'm sure many of you have heard me use that metaphor of the Far Side cartoon, of the two fellas looking out the 747 pilots. No, yes, no.
Yes,
no.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
One. Okay. Well, they're looking out their head of their plane, and one of them says to the other, "Boy, you usually don't see goats up this high, because there's a goat on the mountain, right?" Well, you know, people say, "Why?" Well, 2 seconds later, of course, they crashed into the mountain. Now, why would I even bring that up? Well, if you think of it literally, it's horrible. But it metaphorically, before I met Mr. Banks, I did not often realize that I was off guide path with what I was doing with these beautiful gifts of mind, thought, and consciousness, until I was in the hospital passing a kidney stone, or lying on my back with my back spasm, or having done something totally outside my own moral code, or reacted to some situation that ended up totally destroying a friend relationship that I'd had for some time. And so So what I hear you saying is that you're becoming more sensitive to being off guide path, and that's what's happened for me. And that's what, whether it's my mood going down a little bit, or my tension going up a little bit, or my thinking get a little less, losing less of its clarity and getting a little muddled, or my neck or back kind of hurting a little bit, or relationships that were easy getting difficult. I have at least 5 alarm systems that let me know, Bill, it's time to go to calm and curious, because if you keep going the direction you're headed right now, it ain't gonna be pretty. You've been there, you've done that, been there, done that. Is that helpful?
Yeah, really, really helpful. But honestly, I just think, you know, I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, God, this is going to sound, I just nearly said something. I was going to say, you haven't got a crack, you've got a massive gape, but I don't know how else to put it.
Oh, thank you. If you keep talking, I cut Michelle off on her question, so I'm going to have to cut you off of giving me all this frosting. All right, I'm going to. If I had a cowboy hat, I'd have to go get another 1/8 or quarter size increase for my head. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, let's see.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to unmute yourselves, or also if you want to ask a question, but you can write it down and we can read it, or maybe have a reflection to share, and if not, it's fine.
You know, one of the things that I'm just going to share with you for those that are interested, when I look at those people, at least the ones that I can see, we all have something in common. We're all pretty pink. There's not a whole lot of variation of color here. And I've watched 2 documentaries recently that have been, one of them I've watched completely, and the other one I've just started to watch. And I'm just going to mention them to you, because as an older white male who's been privileged, I mean, even the females, we have our Declaration of Independence of all men are created equal, and it took 150 years after that before women were even allowed to vote, let alone, the way the indigenous Native Americans and the African people that were brought here as slaves. And so anyway, the 2 documentaries, for those that are interested, are on YouTube, and one is called Unforgivable Blackness. It's a Ken Burns, 3 hours and 40 minutes. I watched it 20 minutes at a time. It was inspiring. It was heartrending. It was informative, and it's about Jack Johnson, who was the first heavyweight champion of the world that was African American in about 1910. But it's more than about a fighter. It's so much more than that. And the other one is I just started to watch, and it's a African American ACLU lawyer speaking to a large group of people, and it's called "When Heritage Equal Hatred." And it's an hour and 40 minutes. I've just started watching it. My friend Virgil Wood, who was with Dr. Martin Luther King for the last 10 years of his life until he was killed, said that one, When Heritage Equal Hatred, is one of the most powerful things of white supremacy that he's ever seen. So anyway, I feel like a 78-year-old man who's still waking up from a slumber daily, and I guess that's okay. I say that with humility because I am grateful that what I've been privileged to have, and hope that I use that privilege in a good way as best as I can, but it doesn't mean that the privilege was right. There's no way that I would have. Medical schools now have 50%, sometimes more than 50% women. I guarantee you, we had 11 women out of 200. We had 1 black woman and 1 black man. And there is no way, if we would have had 50% women in our medical school that I would have become an MD. No way. And I know that. And it's wonderful that it's finally equality is starting little by little to really mean something for regardless of gender, regardless of male or female parts, regardless of color of the skin, the amount of melatonin that you have. So anyway, that's just, I feel like I'm just waking up about a lot of that gradually.
You know, Bill, I'm from Argentina, and my granddad, who was a doctor, he was the son of, so he was a third black. So his grandmother was black, and when my mom, who was one of the first generations of in the 60s of women trying to go to university in Argentina, she said, I want to be a doctor. My granddad, who, even though his skin was sort of darker for the likes of people in society, managed to be a doctor. He said, no, that's not a job for a woman.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Went into education, and then that opened up, the University of Psychology opened up, and then she could go through that, and then because it was so new, my granddad was like, well, okay, you'll help people, but you're not a doctor, so I guess that's fine.
Right.
So I'm saying this because it also took me on these past weeks, for everything that's happened, to see how I haven't waken up to certain things, to see how privileged, or how, you know, today I can sit here in this sort of pink, white suit. Well, really, I still have also black system, only that people can't see it. And I'm a woman that can sit here next to my lovely man and be front of house.
Yes.
And when you say be thankful for what you have.
Say what? I didn't hear what you said after that. When I say what?
Be thankful for what you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mr. Banks said, be thankful for what you've seen.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's so important to see what we have achieved, and how far we've gone, and how still we have some things to see. Then it's easier to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And enjoy the journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, enjoy the journey. Doesn't have to be hard.
I think that's one thing for me recently. I always was, when I was born, I was always kind of told that, oh, you know, it's not going to be an easy journey having a disability and everything like that. And more recently, I'm seeing that it's not that hard. You know, having a disability, it's like I've always said to Carolina, that if I could have my disability or not, I'd probably still have it, because it's who I am. And the amount of awakening that I've had recently due to my disability, well, not due to my disability, but due to me understanding my disability, has helped me so much to grow as a human being.
It's really beautiful. I know. I don't have any need for you to share what you're calling your disability, because I don't experience it. I don't know what the disability is, so that's okay. It's okay. That's an interesting word, isn't it? You know, there's an ESPN sports network had a special not too long ago on this this man who was born. It showed when he was born. His parents could have obviously stopped the pregnancy. They didn't. You know, he had no arms and no legs. And they show this little baby as a baby rolling around on the floor laughing with no arms and no legs, rolling around, laughing and happy, the happiest little baby ever. He's an adult now. He loved football, and he would watch football, and he learned to do things with his teeth, to put out plays, to make plays. And he eventually got a coach of a junior varsity high school team in California. And he has to be carried, he has to be dressed, everything. He has no arms, no legs. And he is an incredible coach to these kids. And they followed him, and they lost in the championship game, right? In the championship game, and they have so much pride in their coach who has no arms and no legs. And he got offered a head coaching job at a big high school. And he said, no, my work isn't finished here yet. We haven't won the title yet. I'll think about it then. Wow. And I complain sometimes if the air conditioning goes off for a little while. Give me a frickin' break. Give me a break. Anyway. And I don't say that as a should, but I just say that, you mean the happiness is really inside? It's really inside? Some of you have heard me read talk about the book Flying Without Wings. And it's about a man that real long before Sid Banks ever had his experience in 1973. Arnold Beiser, it's called Flying Without Wings. He was a doctor who finished his internship in 1952 or whenever and got drafted into the Korean War. And on his way to driving to his assigned place, started not feeling well, pulled into a Navy hospital, and woke up the next morning quadriplegic with polio. Quadriplegic with polio a few months before the polio vaccine was finished. He ended up being, after 5 years of physical therapy, going into a psychiatry residency, and he was a psychiatrist faculty at UCLA for many years until he passed away. Arnold Beiser, you can YouTube him. Amazing. He talks about the day that he saw that his happiness was inside of him. And he went from despair and unable, it's hard to even kill yourself when you can't move anything but your head. And suddenly he experienced that happiness was inside of him. No shoulds, but it's just true, folks. It's just true. And if we just keep going, direction is the key. It has nothing to do with speed. If we keep going in that direction, effortlessly, that pile of exceptions that we have will get smaller and smaller. And you don't have to keep score. It's not about that. It's about living each moment that you can in the present moment and not beating yourself up when you wake up and realize you've fallen asleep for a day or two or 3 days or a week. You know, many of you have heard me tell that I got caught about 12 years after I was exposed to the principles. After 21 years of going in and out of depression, I didn't go there for 12 years. And then I did for 6 or 8 weeks. And the short story is, when I gave up trying to get out of it, I came out of it. and I haven't been back there since. And I'm grateful. But I saw that I'd gotten caught up in something in my life that I couldn't change, that I attached my happiness to. I love that quote from Sid, says, when the desires of your mind cause turmoil for your soul, it's time to let go of the desires. I'm aware of the time, but I'm also, if anyone has any last things that they want to ask or say before we stop, this has been wonderful for me. At the risk of being inappropriate, which I've been a few times in my life, it's been wonderful for me. I hope it was good for you too.
So Michelle, so much. This has been brilliant. So any last questions around there? Thank you so much. This has been an absolute dream come true. Yeah. You're so yeah, I'm honored, and it really has. I mean, I'm not fibbing. It's been wonderful. I appreciate it. Thank you. When we thought we would like to do something where we go back to where Sydney Banks started, which was his living room. Room, sharing with friends, the neighbors, that feeling, what we know that change our lives. And the thing is, we couldn't meet Sydney Banks in form, and so we have his books and his videos and his recordings, and what we have is this beautiful possibility of having you telling us of what that experience was like. Well, you're very welcome. And, you know, you're in for a treat sometime down the line. I think my wife, Linda, is going to be with you. Well, and next week, I want to introduce this very, very wise lady that I'm sure you're learning from. Yeah. It's true. No, it's very true. And, you know, about 12 years ago, before the first conference, I was asked to go by Rabbi Shaul Rosenblatt to the UK to speak, to do a 4-day program. And I said to him that I'd be glad to do that, but that I would ask that my wife's airfare be paid also to come, and that she would be with me participating. He said, well, you can tell Shaul. He laughs about this now. So he was kind of, okay, you know, your wife. Well, he said, after the 4 days, I thought, well, wow. The next time, if Linda really insists, I'll probably let her bring Bill along, right? Well, you're in for a treat, folks. Take care. Yeah, a treat. That's next week on Wednesday. That is 7:30 UK time, PM. So we'll put all the details, and she's going to talk about unleashing intuition and the magic of the 3 principles. She's taught me and continues to. I'm learning slowly. Yeah. She absolutely. I was really down in a very dark place, and you know, and it's nice because you know, as forgotten, was it Jean? Yeah, was saying, like, it was one of those moments I was like, how I've forgotten everything I've learned about the principles, and as Mr. Banks says, it just takes just a tap. Wake up, tap on the shoulder, wake up. Linda so beautifully just sort of we have that beautiful connection, and she's just really boom brought me up. Good. So next week we're having Linda Pettit here, and Bill, big massive hug from here. Thank you so much. Lots of frosting. Yeah, let's hear it for frosting. Tons of frosting.